Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Sasha and I getting ready for the 3, 2, 1.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday session, LinkedIn Live with Rachel B. Lee. I have been waiting for this interview with Sasha Strauss because he's a boss, man. Like you're branding. I'm a branding lady boss. Like you're the branding boss. So I'm gonna call you that.
Wow. No, but I'll take any love you want. But I will say that the branding business is everyone's game. It's the most beautiful category because really everyone can play in it.
That is true. That is true. So today we're going to talk about the hot topic is around academia and corporate and how to innovate your brand. Sasha has really an incredible background. And what I love most about him is because he teaches MBAs and he still is in the academics of it. And so how do you bridge the academic perspective and what the learning is with real life business? And you are that because you run Innovation Protocol. So Sasha, I would love for you to introduce yourself and also talk a little bit about why you founded Innovation Protocol and what you do there.
Okay. So I'm a brand strategist. That is the boundaries of my profession. Some people are lawyers, some people are engineers. I'm a brand strategist, and I tend to do it in 3 ways. As Rachel just said, I run a company called Innovation Protocol. There's 25 of us. We've been doing it for 15 years. I run a company doing brand strategy consulting. But as important to me are my classrooms. And as mentioned, I get to teach and speak at some really wonderful schools, graduate business schools. And then part of being a speaker and a brand strategist, educator and brand strategist is that people ask you to speak. So I've been lucky enough to give quite a few keynote speeches at some awesome conferences.
And I saw on your Twitter, it looks like, do you do stuff with Simon Sinek or you help teach? What do you do?
Yeah, so he and I have been on the same stage before and crossed paths many times over the last decade of professional speaking. And when during lockdown, you can imagine, listen, he's probably one of the most popular speakers in the world, right? No question. Okay, so imagine lockdown happened and he's like, okay, now what? Of course, he's got great books and great community. So he took a lot of the workshops and sessions that he hosts with his peers and partners, and he created an online environment for it. And he called it Optimism U. And it basically is a channel that he hosts content on and then asks a select group of people to come and teach. And so for the last year, I've been teaching personal branding on simonsinek.com, and it's been really special. I'll just note that it's a 4-fee class, so everyone pays to take it, and it's not inexpensive. I think I may be up to like $100 to take the class, and people call in from all over the world. It is so cool. I easily will have people from 30 countries in a single class.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And a perfect segue into one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was personal branding. So we'll kind of bounce around. I want to talk about the academic side, but here you are being asked to talk about personal branding. Here I am leaving my corporate job, right? And Josh is here. Hey, everybody that's here, let us know where you're in at. And I'm focusing in on personal branding because I think this is it. Like, this is what matters the most for companies, for individuals. It's all about personal branding. So talk a little bit about what does it mean to you? How are you teaching this?
Yeah, I agree that it's so important. And let me just give everyone a reason. Before the internet, who you were, how you were known, I don't know, was it like a paper resume? Was that how you were going to go to a job interview and you had to hand them a paper resume or fax it to them, and they were supposed to deduce from that limited content who you were and why you mattered to the world? As the internet gave us all a place to host our identities, to create connections and engage one another, it has completely unlocked our identity potential because we get to broadcast and own the audience and connect with our fans and connect with our coworkers. My favorite example is, if you talk to someone over 50 and ask them how many friends do they have from kindergarten, their answer is, I don't know, maybe one. I think I know where one of them lives. Whereas you talk to any youth today, they are permanently connected, whether that's through Discord or TikTok or Facebook, it doesn't matter, to everyone that they ever went to school with. Which, if you think about your career potential, How amazing is that? How amazing that, you have 225 people in your MBA class and you don't have to beat yourself up because you only made close friends with 15 of them. All of them are going to be permanently connected to you in the LinkedIn environment. And that says a lot about what you need to say about yourself, how you need to speak up, stand up, communicate, and build your personal brand. I'll add one last nugget. As much as it is the time for us as individuals to take hold of the identity that is our destiny and communicate that consistently, if we are employed, our employer needs it too. Even for the best of corporations, it's about the people in the corporations. It's about the individuals leading the corporation. So your personal brand may be about your solo journey, but can equally also be about you being inside an amazing organization and elevating it. And so that's why we're seeing personal brand be a topic inside and outside organizations amongst leadership and general staff.
Ooh, I want to dig into this more. And I want to say hi to Michelle and Jay. These are some of my buds.
Hey.
Thank you for being from Atlanta. I know Jay should be in from California. So let's talk about this piece of the personal branding and the employer branding. Yeah. Because I'm going to be straight with you, Sasha. I have felt as an employee very restricted to be my authentic self, my personal brand, to tell my story, to do things on the side because it could jeopardize the company. And I hear this over and over again. So with the companies, what are you hearing? How are the employers actually going to advocate for the employees, not just the employees advocating for the employers?
Okay, excellent question. And of course, an overly outspoken, audacious talent can become a distraction. So I'm not disregarding that an overly spoken individual could become an issue. But for the general...
Overly spoken? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. And maybe, maybe the challenge was that your leadership profile and your identity was more durable, more desirable than your senior leader, and therefore your personal brand was squashed. But I'm just saying in general, where the organizations that I get to advise and consult, why they're in on personal branding for their, middle management, et cetera, is because they see that when you source your pride in what you do and you teach it in a classroom or speak about it at a conference or blog about it, you become more connected to the work you do. And so that's what we really need as employers. The comp is not going to be enough. The benefits are not going to be enough. The time off is not going to be enough. So we need to actually give our talent a stage. And if they want it, I understand that there are certain political boundaries or social boundaries that become a distraction from the work. And so what I help my coworkers do and what we help our clients do is create a framework around the personal brand. Let me give you a very simple example, and then you can extrapolate from there. I was doing a podcast interview the other day, and I mentioned this healthcare system. I got a lot of questions about it, and it was really interesting. It's a very, very large employer, tens of thousands of employees. And right now they have a corporate mandate that all of the employees need to have a statement about why they chose to work in healthcare. And it has to be a part of how they introduce themselves, and it has to come across in their corporate email. So, hi, I'm Sasha. I'm on a mission to change healthcare through communication and, I'm just like making this up as we go. But the point is that you could ask, oh no, is that distracting? Does that mean that doctor is out building their own identity? Actually, no. In the healthcare system, when you walk in to meet with that physician and they say, hi, I'm in healthcare for these reasons, it unlocks a potential connection, a deep relationship that wasn't possible before that person had that sort of like, hi, who am I? And so just to come back to your question, corporations that are empowering their talent to do personal branding get that the end customer and buyers want to interact with humans, but more importantly, those humans you're employing, they want to be something. So provide the platform for them to be something, and they'll stick around longer, they'll care more, and they'll absolutely reference where they work.
Ooh, it's such a good example. And especially in healthcare where, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little echo, but that just could be me. But in healthcare where it can be a little, the trust
Yeah.
people, and especially the drug industry, we're not going to get into that, but is a, a feeling of lack of trust and all the ad spend and everything. So when you are talking to somebody and it's a human,
Yeah.
and we at Stand Out Authority, we are about the human interaction and being human to human, and they sort of identify in this moment, this email, why they want to do this and why they're working for this company. That's game changer.
It's so true. And in fact, maybe something that we hear in our professional communities is that business to business really used to be about like corporation buying from corporation. And now it is clearly a person in a business is buying services or solutions from a person in a business. And so who are those people? And if those people's identities are unknown or easily forgotten, well, then the whole business to business transaction runs the risk of, I don't know, being beat out by a competitive price or being distracted by some other voice. And that's the power of personal brand.
Oh my gosh. I know Josh is listening. This is like music to our ears because we're literally just like, I'm like getting chills because we're so aligned. Hey, Russell. Hey, Kalpesh. Nice to see you guys. I always like to say hi, whoever joins us. Thanks for being here, y'all. So what does that mean for the company brands? So I work at whatever, Microsoft. I used to work there. But then there's and I was working with the Microsoft branding teams. There's still the Microsoft brand.
Sure.
Right? And how are you, when you're working with the companies, how are you sort of investing in the brand? Think about all the ad spend, brand, and then the people. What is your perspective on that?
Well, listen, I think that really comes down to buy or earn. And of course, these brands like Microsoft are buying space, communicating their offerings, saying, hey, we're recruiting, hey, we're launching these new solutions. But that those are not what are clicked. Those are clicked 1/10 the amount of an employee at Microsoft sharing the job post and saying, hey, I work here, you should too, click. And so we see this beautiful balance, which is, yes, big organization. Yes, powerful communicator. You can buy eyes, but will they respond? Will they take action? Sometimes. Whereas if you can enable your talent to have an outward voice and they are empowered to speak about your organization and communicate your offerings and ignite interest in a role, you will get far more traction. You'll get more engagement, more discussion, more clicks, and more connection. And that's why these brands are absolutely having to juggle both. In fact, I think you probably can note the behavior on your mobile device. When you know something is a paid placement, they don't need hashtag ad. It immediately feels different than when the exact same piece of content comes across your friend's Instagram story, per se.
Yeah.
So anyway, perfect example of why these brands need both.
Well, and that's the whole influencer marketing, right? Where that's why we've seen such multi-billion-dollar. I'm seeing a little. What do you think about influencer on that?
I love it. I have a great respect for influencers, and just to give influencers the credit that they deserve. Before we attach the word influencer to one kind of influencer, let's say a teenager in gaming, I think we all need to take into consideration, for as long as we've had careers, there have been people that are an influence on an industry. Those could be analysts, those could be blog editors. So, everyone sort of write themselves and recognize that influencers have always been around. Right. What's important today is in between buying media and having an authentic human communicate your brand, there's sort of a middle space where you can find influencers, people that already have an audience that are aligned. Maybe they also care about personal branding, or maybe they also are into fashion. And by investing in an influencer, you can unlock more human connection. And that's why we're seeing even the most powerful of brands, even the brands that could buy all the media they want in the world. What are they doing? They're engaging a human, an influencer, a person to relay the message for them, because that's how badly we want to do business with people, with a human, not a business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious your perspective here on influence and thought leadership.
I love it. And this deserves its own LinkedIn Live conversation. It's so, because don't we hear that both from our clients? Like, oh no, I want to have influence, I want to influence. And they all are like, oh, and I also want to be known as a thought leader. Let us first not imply that they are separate. let's just say that you're a chemical company and you're constantly doing research on the category. You may produce white papers with, with a lot of elaborate analysis, and then you may also create a simple version of that, or a more socialized dialogue around it that becomes part of a work group, an internet work group, and it becomes a much more accessible conversation. So what I want to separate for the audience is thought leadership tends to feel, as Rachel almost implied earlier, academic. It feels like there's some qualifiers. It feels like there's some data points. It feels like there's some editorial observation and analysis. Thought leadership, very powerful because people will read it, they'll forward it, they re-click on it. It's really amazing. Separately, we're talking about what influence might be. And influence might just be someone referencing you or showing up at the right place at the right time. And what's awesome is that you can do them together. Is that thought leadership, digested, simplified, and socialized, is perfect for the influence conversation to seed the community and facilitate a conversation. So that's why I like them both. And I really do not try to hold them apart. I like to let them play together because, by the way, overly academic thought leadership, no one wants to read that nonsense. Overly influencer content, everyone calls that out as inauthentic. But when the influencer, let's say someone teaching how to raise your children, is bringing real world examples and data points to this conversation, they feel like a thought leader to me, but that has influence because their voice has been heard and their audience respects that voice. So big answer to your great question.
You're right. It's not or, it's and it's sort of this linear path. And
yes.
I agree with you. The word thought leader is used a lot in corporations. Oh, we want to be a thought leader in this space, this industry, right? You're right. It is more academic, more data driven. And so how do you have, and I talk about this a lot in my workshops too, is like credibility. What experiences and credibility do you have, and how are you using that to tell your story? And so that's where, to me, like you're saying, the thought leadership and using some data and some research to balance out and to really give credibility to the influence that you have out there, right? Because there's so many people that are saying a lot of shit that isn't true, Sasha.
Totally.
And they have a lot of influence. So I like the connection of these two.
I appreciate your response. Can I give you a fun visual example of what you and I are agreeing on, which is that thought leadership can be influence content. My favorite example of that is infographics. When you're like cruising through the gram or doing whatever you're doing on social and like an information graphic comes up and you're like, hold, and you kind of read into it. And listen, that is probably a brief summary of a much longer thought leadership investment. But hey, it's showing up where people who have influence are reposting, connecting, and making comments. And you see you're getting more traction, more engagement on your thought leadership because you hand it over to the influence world. And that's why I really like thinking about them as mutually beneficial.
Yeah. And I don't know if people have seen Sasha's like really fun recaps. It must be from your lectures. I think it's in that corner. Do you draw those? Or do you have
Yeah, for sure.
Those things are so cool that you make, must be for your classes. I'm like, right. You used to pay for people to do all that art.
I honestly, just because you're asking me, COVID struck. And as I mentioned at my intro earlier, I run a company. So I have all these coworkers, I teach and I speak. And so I have these audiences. I basically was like, oh my gosh, lockdown. What do I do with this rectangle? Like this rectangle sucks, like how am I supposed to make this good? And so I don't want to distract from our interview, but I kind of made like a little display and started drawing all these cards to use for my classes. And it has gone so well. Like, I can't even believe how well it has worked because this rectangle needed stimulation, needed a little bit more, So that's what you're, yeah. So I just use these notes to draw out the cards.
And I think it's actually really tied into this idea of branding and how to you yourself building your personal brand and taking what you're doing in your work and bringing that to life on social and then in the classroom. It's just a really cool example, I think, for people. And how do we in this, virtual world, create stimulation in the environment and then out of it. And I think it's a really cool thing that you're doing, because there's that physical aspect of it. I think it's smart.
I appreciate that so much. And I like, it's something I'm willing to be proud of. I'm usually a very modest person, but this I'm really proud of, because part of what inspires me to teach the way that I teach was being a student and feeling like I wasn't getting it. The content wasn't connecting with me. And so part of what I obligated myself to at the onslaught of COVID was take into account every one of those students. What are they going to need from this virtual learning experience? And so part of that was, all right, you're going to get this on camera time. What does that even look and feel like? Do you add some lights? Do you turn your desk so that you're getting light from the windows? Do you stand up? Like and I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm standing up right now. Like I made all these choices. I got an auxiliary microphone, an auxiliary camera to try and complete the rectangle. And so what you're referencing, these doodles were just my like cherry on top. How do I hold the space and not, say, can you see my second screen yet? Are you viewing my PowerPoint yet? It's like, no. In my class, this is the screen. This is the space.
I love it. I love it so much. Thanks, Marianne, and for being here as well from Zagreb. Very cool. So I would love to talk a little bit about the academic environment that you're teaching in as an MBA and still working with the University of Texas McCombs School of Business. Presented to them on Friday about how do you build your personal brand, your story, and do that on LinkedIn. That was literally my session, Sasha. So what is going on in the classroom? What are the concerns that you're getting? What are you teaching? Because it's a totally new world. It
is totally a new world. And by the way, I saw that post. Nice job. That room looked beautiful. Lots of great students. Congratulations on that opportunity. And I implore any of us listening today, all of us remember a classroom where a guest speaker came and they said something that changed our perspective on our careers, our work, our home life. So get out there and go do that. Call all the universities, classrooms, high schools you were a part of as a student and go guest speak there. Okay, so Rachel, your question about what's going on in the classroom today. All right, well, listen, let's just get right to it. The content has been simplified. I don't like that answer, but listen, that's the challenge with having to learn through this. So I'll give you an example. There was a class that I've been teaching for a decade at a nonprofit university, and the class was usually an all-day Friday class. Okay, so you got a lot of space. You could have breakouts. You could have a guest speaker. It was awesome. That got compressed down to 2 hours on video, 2 hours asynchronous homework, watch a video, dialogue, add content into the chat kind of thing. Ooh, that completely changed the learning experience, right? And so I had to either decide that I was sad about it or be like, all right, new format, how do we rock this? And so what I'm seeing in the classroom is what I probably have been noting for a long time, which was that the classroom and the way we taught in the classroom is antiquated. And so these lockdowns, and let me just give you an example. My old classrooms were theaters. They're tiers. I had the largest class in the school, so these huge amphitheaters.
Yeah.
That wasn't a very inclusive environment. It only included those that were able-bodied. I mean, of course, there was that one spot way at the top where someone in let's say a walker could stand, but please, why don't they get front row,
Yeah.
All right, well, guess what? Now everybody gets to come to class. Everyone. And even if someone is nursing or caring for a loved one or whatever, they still are coming to class. So as sad as I am about losing my 8 hours of face-to-face experience, it hurts. I'm less of a person because of it. I am really thrilled about what the virtual environment has unlocked for my academic experience, because I get more people regularly connecting and socializing and chatting and touching the work than I ever could in a classic classroom environment. And that to me makes it a win. Makes me glad that this has happened rather than regret it.
And what you were just saying, this social networking and socializing digitally, That's it. We were waiting for people to figure this out. And now it's like, we're in it, guys.
I have a great example. Rachel, I've been thinking about our interview for the last 2 weeks, and I'm watching my socials to try and have examples to bring to you. And this one happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I've been waiting. So I gave a speech at one of the universities that I teach at, and it's the opening session for their entire 2-year program. They're in a 22-month program. They do all of these modules, and then it's my talk, and then they go off and do their thing, okay? And by the way, I had to wear a mask on stage with a microphone. It was fascinating. And so as I'm sort of preaching on this stage, talking to them about what they need to do, I had a reflection, which was, okay, I've been doing this for 10 years at this university. I've been telling them how important it is to, let's say, build a profile in LinkedIn and connect your classmates. And I used to be an outcast. I used to be called out like, oh, Sasha, you social media freak. Okay, what's amazing now, this is so true, that these students proactively create a profile before they start their first day of class. And then, this is what's so fascinating, that week that I just talked about, how they have their first onboarding week, and I happen to be the last speaker. Well, what are they doing? They're taking pictures of every slide, and they're creating LinkedIn posts that get hundreds of clicks from friends that are proud of them from going to graduate school, to classmates who are saying things like, oh my gosh, it's so cool that we're in this class together and we get to grow together. The class is 250 people. How do 250 people in a crash course 5-day session get to know each other? They don't. Well, now they can and do and are, and it is unbelievable to see the dialogues that are happening in social to supplement the academic space.
It's such a good example.
It's really special. I should take a screenshot and post it to this chat, because honestly, like, you'll see like people saying, oh my gosh, I would have never have met you if it weren't for this class. And I'm so glad that I also met these people who are also interested in corporate social responsibility, for example. And so they're creating these huge social dialogues that would never have happened in the classic, no, MBAs come to a classroom and they sit and they are quiet. They only look at the person in the front of the room. They don't look at anyone else during class. It's like, no. There are other freaking people in this class. Why shouldn't we be looking at their chat conversations? Why shouldn't they be able to add to the discourse? So that's why I'm kind of excited. I kind of like this, and I'm excited about how everyone can get involved because of these new media.
And it makes the world a lot smaller. You know, it makes the world smaller. We're more connected than ever before, and there's the most opportunity right now. And that's what I talk about, just like you, where it's like, put yourself out there.
Totally.
Don't have the companies come to you. You will be so surprised as you're posting and tagging and commenting. You're getting visibility. You're going from anonymous to being seen. And when you're seen, things come to you, opportunities. And that's what you need to be doing all the time.
I have a very simple statement I use at the start of a brand strategy 101 class that I teach. And it's really for the disbelievers. And I say, people don't buy what they don't know exists. I'm sorry. Okay. So people don't hire a human they don't know exists. Donors don't donate to a nonprofit they don't know exists. So you have to speak up. You have to say, okay, so what are you going to say? And who are you going to say it to? And what do you hope happens to them because you've said it? Like, those are magical questions you get to ask yourself. And you absolutely have the media channel to say it. Imagine trying to do this 40 years ago, going down to the local community station and asking, can I get a midnight window to say something on broadcast? It's like, no. If you have something to say, everyone can hear it if you want to say it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sasha, I know we're coming in. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I'm so jealous of all the students that get to take your classes, because I never had somebody like you. And so they're so lucky to have your experience, your energy, your excitement. It's really just, I'm super honored and so joyful that you were here today with me. I would love for you to close. We're going to walk away from today. what is one thing, two things that people can take away and really think about where we are today on this September 10th, 2021?
Okay. Well, I wrote down three things, so I'll pick two.
Okay.
Okay. So my first answer is obvious, I think, and that is, as we're hearing about talent flight, the great resignation, the can't find employees, the employees are burned out in their virtual work. This is the era of employer branding. And so it's extremely important, if you employ 2 people or 20,000, that you are thinking about what it means to work at this place. What common words do we use to describe our efforts? What happens to the world when we do this work? That language people, maybe they like to have before now, but now we desperately need it because as we're stuck remote, or this is how it is now, whatever the case, we need to feel a connection to the organization that employs us. And that's the primary ask, is don't forget that whether it's called corporate social responsibility or whether it's called employer branding or you call it corporate social responsibility, employer branding is why I like working at this place, why this place is good for the world, why the customer is getting value from this organization, and how that informs my job. I mentioned corporate social responsibility because it's the second part of this discussion, which is the employer brand. I think that you could probably see it as very functional, like, hey, here's how we work and where we work and why we do what we work. Okay, fine. But the employer brand plus the second thing on my list, corporate social responsibility or pro-social identity. What good are we doing for the world? How does what we do impact the world beyond our revenue? Employer branding and corporate social responsibility love each other. They are gifts to one another, and you'll ultimately find that the strongest employer brands are tied to what that organization does for the world. Because I have kids and I love Lego, and I've been holding onto my Lego until they were old enough from when I was a child so that they would play with them. You ask yourself, who does Lego donate to? Or what does Lego give away? And I hope you know that Lego is a high-performing, high-revenue organization, lots of profit. All right, your conclusion is that their workforce does not just do random philanthropy. Their workforce does specific philanthropy. Part of working at Lego is creating learning tools that help educate and advance the young mind. Cool. Well, guess what their CSR work is? Guess what their pro-social behaviors are? It is them supplying education, inspiring youth through building. They're not giving out random funds to random solution because it looks good on paper. Their employer brand and their corporate social responsibility identity are synonymous.
We have a lot of Legos here, so it is a perfect example. Oh, Sasha, you're just straight fire. Thank you so much. Russell, you're right. Today was phenomenal interview. Thank you so much. We're going to close out today. We'll be back next week. Sasha, thank you. Everybody, we'll see you next week. Josh and I will be on Tuesday with Rick Jordan, and I'll be on Friday too. So we got lots of content coming up over the next week.
Good stuff.
You know, we're doing the socials.
Rock it, girl.
Thanks, Sasha.
All right. Pleasure, Rachel. Thanks for having me. Love to Josh.